Hello Infiniteers, welcome back to my Halloween Takeover toy box. Today I'm going to hook up the logic for the final confrontation with Maleficent and the restoration of the toy box, so it looks like it does right now. Now I mentioned last time that there are two stages to the restoration process. The first stage involves visiting each area of the park and destroying the cauldron that you find there, and that restores the major landmarks in that area of the park. And we implemented this logic in the previous episode. Now the second stage involves the confrontation with Maleficent over in the Fantasyland portion of the toy box. And Maleficent will not appear until the player has destroyed all the cauldrons and picked up all of the collectibles. But when she does appear, then the player battles her final minions, climbs the tower, picks her up and tosses her into the collection pen over here, and that breaks the spell, which restores the rest of the park. And that includes the terrain theme, the plants, and of course the Sky Dome. The second stage is what we're working on today. And by the way, I have logic diagrams on my blog that go along with today's episode. The link is in the video description, so you may find it helpful to follow along on those diagrams as we go. Now before we get started, since we're going to be working over in Fantasyland, which is really close to the Matterhorn, I want to make sure that I do not accidentally trigger the dynamic trigger over there and wander into the area. So we're going to push the button that we set up last time, which will disable all of the dynamic triggers. And let's start by placing the pumpkins around the toy box. The player has to pick these up in order to have Maleficent appear, and it gives them something else to do besides just battling enemies. And you can place these anywhere you want. Within reason. There are a few limitations. So for example, make sure you don't place it out here. I mean, it'll let you place this, but you may have trouble restoring the Thunder Mountain Railroad when we use the replayer during the game. So make sure you don't put any of these within the bounding box of any of the toys that we're dynamically taking out and removing, such as Thunder Mountain or Space Mountain or any of those. Now here, this won't of course collide with anything, so we could put this up here. It's not going to overlap these bounding boxes or the bounding boxes for any of the Halloween Town decorations that we put in, so those are okay. Putting one somewhere out here would be okay. At the Matterhorn, I don't want to put one anywhere in the bounding box for the Matterhorn, but we could put one up here on the rail slide outside of the Matterhorn. So here, for example, I just wouldn't put it over here because that's inside the bounding box. And we could put one inside the bridge here. That would be fine. We want to put some up on the castle, and I'm showing you where I placed all of mine. You can place yours anywhere you want. So if you don't like my placements, that's okay. You can pick your own. The other thing you'll notice is that I'm putting these directly into the toy box. All right? Which means these are fixed locations. So when the player plays through the toy box, in my toy box, those locations will not change. All right? So every time I load up the toy box, the pumpkins are always going to be where they are right now. If you wanted to add some randomness, to the toy box, so every time you play it, pumpkins would be in different locations. Do not use replayers to do that, because we have basically maxed out the replayer memory with all of the buildings that we are putting in and taking out. And I don't care what platform you're on, whether you're on PC or the Wii U or a PlayStation or whatever, the replayer memory doesn't seem to be any different between those different versions. Okay, you're very limited on what you can put in and out with replayers. So if you want some randomness for your collectibles, don't use a replayer. What you can do instead, if you're on a system with more memory than my Wii U, you can place additional collectibles around the toy box and just place a ton of them. You can see what I've placed. Place them on different buildings, different locations, mix it up, put them all over the place. So maybe you've got 30 or 40 collectibles in here. And then set up a randomizer at the beginning. And the randomizer on each random trigger signal would pick maybe 10 or 12 of those. And so you could set up a level starter that would basically hide each of the collectibles, and then use the randomizer so that when the player leaves the trigger area, it invokes the randomizer, and you could use the randomizer again to pick 10 or 12 of the collectibles and make them visible and spread them out throughout the park. That way you can get your randomness. Now I'm not going to do that because you can see from my memory meter I'm getting up dangerously close there to the top. I've still got a ways to go, but I want to leave enough room for all of the enemies that I'm going to be using. So I don't want to fill this up with more collectibles. And you saw as I was placing those down how quickly that was filling up. So that's important. But for mine, I'm keeping it simple. I'm just placing the collectibles where they are. Alright, so let me show you the toys that I have placed ahead of time, because I've added some creative toys to save time. And by the way, when you're working on this part of the toy box, it's going to be a good idea to come over here to these two replayers in Fantasyland, and we're going to clear the replayer for the Splash Mountain and the Pristine buildings. I'm going to temporarily put the one in here for the Halloween Town buildings, and I'll play that one back. This is going to help as we're placing toys, like locators and such. Alright, so let me show you what I've done. I have placed a time delayer here, and notice it's in front of the one for the Splash Mountain and Pristine Fantasyland buildings. I placed the collection pen over here with a radar marker and a locator. Over here we have an enemy wave generator, and I have hooked it up to locators here, here, and these two back here. I have a radar marker and a friendly wave generator back here. Over here I have another enemy wave generator hooked up to those locators. So we have one here, we have one here, here, and here. Okay. I have also placed a locator up here on top of the tower. Another one back out here, and the exact placement of this one doesn't matter. Just make sure it's lined up with the one for Maleficent up there. And then I placed a camera up here aiming that way. Okay. And finally, I added a action enforcer and a collectible tracker. Oh, and I added two logic gates out over this way that we're going to need for the restoration process. And that's these two right here. Alright, so we have placed our collectibles. Let's go ahead and hook up the collectible tracker next. So on the collectible tracker, under the properties, collectible type I'm going to set to be the pumpkin. I could leave it all because this is the only collectible I'm using in here, but I like to be precise. So it's the jack-o'-lantern collectible, and we want to show those on the radar. Alright, on the collectible tracker, a new logic connection. When the final collectible is collected, we're going to input into our logic AND. This is keeping track of the cauldrons that have been destroyed and now the collectibles that have been picked up. So this is going to go off when all the collectibles are done and the final, or all the cauldrons are done and the final collectible is collected. So this will drive the mission back here in Fantasyland. Okay? Alright, before we do that, let's hook a few things up that we're going to need. So I want to hook up the collectible pen here, and the only thing we're going to do on this is turn on the property to remove the actor that's tossed in here. We need a radar marker for this, so we are going to connect that up to this locator. Oops, I think I pressed the wrong button. I didn't mean to move it. New locator connection. Connect. Alright, and now we can pick this up and move it in here. And on the properties for the radar marker, beacon type is going to be a yellow arrow. Beacon location will be the locator. To save a little time, I have configured this enemy wave generator already and hooked it up to those locators with the new locator connection. For this wave, I have set 1 oak bear, 1 swamp bear, and 2 mahogany bears, because I want this final battle to be a little bit tough. Under the properties, we're going to take the generation delay to 0. And this enemy wave generator, we did the same thing, connected it to those 4 locators over there. This wave is set for 2 oak bears, 1 swamp, 1 mahogany. And again, we're going to set the generation delay to 0. On the friendly wave generator, we're going to connect this up to the locator that's up here on top of the tower. That's where Maleficent is going to appear. And I have already configured the wave for her to use the Maleficent costume. And under here, we're going to set the generation delay to 0. Under generated friend options, under the behavior, we're going to set this to angry. And sorry for the crazy camera action. The game is just wacko. Alright. For the radar marker, because we need one on Maleficent, we're going to connect this with a new actor connection to our friendly wave generator. And on the properties here, beacon type, once again, will be a yellow arrow. Beacon location will be the connected actor. Alright, and then we're going to need a camera so that the player knows what's going on when we generate Maleficent and where she can be found. So we're going to connect this up to the locator that I dropped back here. Notice I am not connecting it up to Maleficent's locator, because if I did that, this camera would be pretty zoomed out. So I want to have it kind of zoomed in on her a little bit, and we can move this camera around after we test it out, which I may not do in this episode, but you can move it closer or further away, however you prefer. For the camera properties, we're going to turn this on for defined duration. We'll leave this set at 10 seconds. These are fine. We're going to turn off glow through. Camera target needs to be the connected locator. And the rest of these are all fine. All right, and for our time delayer back here, I'm going to set the properties on this to be 2 seconds. Okay, so now we have all the pieces in place. So when this logic and here is complete, meaning cauldrons are all destroyed, collectibles are all picked up, this is going to kick off the mission back here in Fantasyland. So on the logic and, a new logic connection, when this is complete, we want to turn on the radar marker for Maleficent. On the logic and, new logic connection when complete. Turn on the radar marker here for the collection pen. On the logic and, a new logic connection when complete. We're going to generate the wave for Maleficent. That will put her in the toy box. And we're also going to generate the waves for the enemy wave generators back here. And there we go. All right, and then once Maleficent is in the toy box, then we can activate the camera so that the player knows that we've generated her and where she can be found. So on the friendly wave generator, a new logic connection. When the wave is generated, we're going to come up here and activate the target camera. And that, because of the way we set the properties, that will run for 10 seconds and then turn itself off. And that should be enough time for Maleficent to show up and the player to kind of get an idea of at least where she is. Even if they don't quite know where she is, the radar marker will guide them there. Okay, and that is it for kicking off the mission. So we are now ready to go with that. And I'm just double checking my notes here. Yep, okay. So the player will battle the enemies. Whether they defeat them all or not doesn't really matter. All that matters is they get up here and get Maleficent and throw her into the collection pen. Okay? So when this wave is defeated for Maleficent, they can either throw her in the collection pen, they can kick her off the side of the world, they can do whatever they want. But once she's defeated, that's when we will restore the rest of the toy box. And so this is going to drive the remainder of the logic. So the first thing we're going to do on our friendly wave generator is a new logic connection when the wave is defeated. First thing we will do is deactivate the radar markers because we don't need those anymore. That includes Maleficent's and the one over at the collection pen. All right, new logic connection on the friendly wave generator. When the wave is defeated, we will go ahead and defeat the rest of the enemies. We'll defeat the waves here, just in case they ignored the enemies and went right for the tower. We want to make sure that these enemies are out of the way when we go to restore the toy box back here. So that's, oops, excuse me, bumped my microphone here. But that's why we're doing this, is to get those enemies out of the way so the replayers can put down the buildings. But it also makes sense from a gameplay standpoint, because once Maleficent is defeated, her spell is broken and all of the enemies should vanish. Alright, so on the friendly wave generator, new logic connection. When the wave is defeated, we're going to come over to the beginning over here, and let's set the sky back first. So we're going to come over to the sky changer. And the sky that we're using is under Disney Infinity. It is the castle sky. If you're using a different sky here for the daytime sky, make sure you set it to that one, because you want to put the sky back to what it was before. Alright, on the friendly wave generator, new logic connection. When the wave is defeated, next thing we will do is come over to our theme transformer. Little ways to go to get there. And we're going to put the world theme back, okay? So we're going to go to world theme. Let's do the terrain. And Toy Box terrain is what we are using. So that will restore the terrain to what you see here. And next we will restore the plants. So on the friendly wave generator for Maleficent, new logic connection. When the wave is defeated, back over to the world changer. But now I can't make a second connection to the world changer again, because you'll see it won't let me pick it, which is why we use these logic gates out here, just like we did when we transformed the park. So we'll input into that. New logic connection on that gate. On output, come over to the theme transformer, go to world theme, population clusters, Toy Box terrain. That'll put all the plants back the way you see them. Alright, on the friendly wave generator, new logic connection. When the wave is defeated, we want to put the rail slide back in that state. So once again, back to the theme transformer. We'll go through the other logic gate here to do that. So we'll input, and on output from that gate, go to rail slide pieces, and we are looking for default. Yeah. Okay. Now most of the buildings will have been restored by this point. That happens on the cauldrons. But we're going to need to restore Fantasyland. So, on the friendly wave generator, new logic connection. When the wave is defeated, we're going to go to the replayer over here. And again, going to the one for the Halloween buildings. And we're going to clear that. And on this replayer, a new logic connection. When this is cleared, and probably before we make that connection, let me cancel out of that. Let's go ahead and clear it now. Alright, so we will clear that to take those Halloween buildings out. Play back that replayer. We're going to want it in this state when we save our toy box anyway. Alright. So, new logic connection on that replayer. When that is cleared, we will kick off the time delayer. New logic connection on the time delayer. When that delay is completed, then we will play back the other one. And I'm doing that because this friendly wave generator back here is doing a lot, okay? It's going to that world the theme transformer. It's transforming terrain, plants, rail slides, all kinds of stuff. So we want to make sure we don't kick off the time delayer from there. I want to wait 2 seconds until after this has actually been cleared to make sure this has enough time to do its work before we kick this off and then restore the buildings for Fantasyland. So that's why I'm doing it that way. It's a little bit different than what we did at in the other areas of the park, but this is why. Okay, next thing we will do, because at this point we've done all the restoration stuff, we just want to have the player celebrate. So, new logic connection on the friendly wave generator. When the wave is defeated, come over to our action enforcer, have all the players celebrate. And a new logic connection on the friendly wave generator. When the wave is defeated, come over to the sound effect generator way back at the start, and I'm going to play my standard end of mission sound just to let the player know they've succeeded. And that's under musical fanfare. Okay, and I believe that is everything. Let me just double check. Yeah, there's a few more things it'll need to do, but that's going to have to wait till next time, because we haven't hooked up some things just yet. So at this point, you can save your toy box. And then if you want to try it out, you'll need to exit out of the toy box and reload it, because we pushed this button here, which disabled all of the dynamic triggers. And that's it for most of the toy box logic. Next time, I will show you how to hook up the logic for all of the little extras that I added, such as the Jack-in-the-Box, the ghosts at the castle, and the Monstro and Cave of Wonders set pieces that pop up around the toy box. And then we will be done with this toy box. So be sure to come back for the final episode in this series, or better yet, subscribe to my channel so you'll be notified when that episode airs. Also, let me remind you that I have logic diagrams for this episode on my blog, which may help you out. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.